Welcome to Parent Teacher Night. Oh, yes, Miss Garner.
If you have one of those airline credit cards, you're probably not earning double miles on every purchase.
You're right. My card only gets extra miles on some types of purchases.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles everywhere.
Wait, but where can we use them?
You can use Capital One Venture miles on any travel purchase.
Venture gets an A+.
Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. It is episode number 239, and this week I am pleased to be joined by a first-time guest. Hello, Liam.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing today, Liam?
Yeah, not too bad. My son woke up at 4 a.m. For me this morning, and it's now 7:30 at the evening. I've been at work as well, so I'm a little bit tired, but I'm looking forward to talking about Survivor Series. That's good.
So it's 3:30 p.m. here on the East Coast of the U.S. and it's a national. I mean, I don't know if this is a national holiday. We always get off at my job. They always give us Thanksgiving and the Friday off. I don't think it's actually like a federal holiday or anything, but a lot of offices are closed. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not that I work from home anyway, so it's like, it's just a day where I get to not work from home instead of work from home.
That's how you feel slightly less guilty.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're back here on another show. First of all, I have to address the elephant in the room. If you're a longtime listener and you're like, is this one of the two Liams who has appeared numerous times on the show? The answer is no. This is a third Liam. So we now have had 3 different Liams as a guest, which it has to be the record for like a name. As far as like most different people with the same name. We've had Liam McCann, who of course is from I know him in the Super J-Cast Discord. He's been on for a bunch of Japanese wrestling episodes. We have Liam Jones, who is the co-host of the TNA podcast on this very network, the You've Got to Be Kidding Me, formerly co-host of Wednesday War Games with Garrett Kidney, also been a guest. And now we have, I'm going to take a stab at your last name, Liam Byrne?
Yeah, very good. It's Irish. So
okay.
it's the Y is silent. So
I am Irish American at least. So I took a guess.
I claim my Irish heritage from my dad's family, basically his parents. But I've never I've been to Ireland once for a stag do, and that's about it. But yeah, I'm a teacher, so my kids often I get called Bjorn and Bjorny and Burns and various other things. So it throws a lot of people.
Yeah. But there you go. I took a guess and I got it right. But yeah, so Liam, the third Liam, completing the hat trick of Liams here on Wrestling Omakase. So I guess, Liam, since you're a new guest, I always like to start out with, your background as a wrestling fan, how you got into wrestling and when you got into wrestling and all that. So we want to get into that.
Yeah, so it's one of those weird ones. I don't really remember wrestling not being part of my life in some ways. Like I remember having VHS videos and wrestling figures from sort of 4 upwards. I mainly remember my sort of biggest kind of like introduction to it was there's a channel called Eurosport over here, and they had what they call World Superstars of Wrestling, and effectively it was New Japan but like dubbed with English commentary.
Oh yeah,
So,
I heard of that.
generally focusing, I think, on the American wrestlers for the most part, but some of the junior heavyweights as well. So I saw a lot of Jushin Liger, saw a lot of Pegasus Kid or Chris Benoit, but also saw a lot of Shinya Hashimoto and Tony Khan. So for a while, I thought Tony Khan was a really, really good wrestler because I didn't know any better. But yeah, so obviously that was soon proved to be wrong. And I've just sort of followed it for many years. I mean, I think like a lot of people, you sort of dip in and dip out, don't you, at times? Sometimes, it's not always a universal kind of like forever and a day sort of thing that you're going to follow. But, I loved it through the Attitude Era. I went to university after that and sort of dipped out of it a little bit. And I kind of got back into it. As I got to an age where I could kind of spend my own money, it sort of coincided with the Brit Res boom that sort of happened a few years ago, unfortunately.
Where are you based, by the way? If you don't mind
where am I
asking?
based? So I'm based in the south. So I'm actually from London originally, and I'm based in the south. So when it came to going to live events, I'd go to Revolution Pro Wrestling or Riptide, were my 2 kind of local ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering because you mentioned the Brit Res boom and all that.
Yeah, it was just one of those ones. Like, as soon as you realise like you like something and you have money that's expendable, and at that point I didn't have I hadn't got married to my wife yet, and I didn't have a long-term commitment in terms of family. So you're like, oh, I'll go and watch some events. So I went to a fair few, but I'll be honest with you, like current wrestling, I'll dip into AEW occasionally. I do watch a lot of Dragon Gate. Dragon Gate's a popular one for me, but I do still tend to watch a lot of older wrestling just because it's just stuff I just quite like. I mean, it just something sort of it's a nostalgia maybe, but I do just tend to go back rather than sort of keep up to date with current stuff.
So I was going to mention that. So the reason why I mean, you're a Voice Wrestling contributor, and what I know you from is those like those month in review, those year in reviews things you do where you do like 1 million columns on a single year.
1992 I was doing, wasn't I?
Yeah. So I know you obviously as like a retro person, and to me it kind of explains why you've never been on before, because usually when I'm asking for a guest, it's for like these 3 or 4 current Puro companies, and it's like, well, if you're not watching them, obviously you're not going to volunteer for that. But here I asked if anyone wanted to do a Survivor Series retro Roulette episode, and you did decide to volunteer for that, so that's cool. So that's why you're making your first appearance.
Yeah, it's something I've wanted to get into doing a few more from time to time. I've done a few before, but the problem always is, like you said, like people tend to be doing stuff that's kind of current, and then I'm like, oh, I'll happily come on and talk about 1980s Mid-South, but like people aren't always looking for that in the guests. So.
Yeah. So, I talked about it, I think, on the last episode a couple of weeks ago. So I am also not watching a ton of, current wrestling. I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break, mostly just, it's kind of just where I got very burnt out. So, I'm trying to see, a lot of times when you're really burnt out on current wrestling, at least for me, what helps is to take like a couple months off. And then, by the time you get back into it, like with fresh eyes, I can usually be really fired up for it again. So
I go through waves. I go through waves of like, even now, like even when I'm in it, I sort of, I'll watch wrestling maybe every night for a week or 2, and then, spend a couple of weeks where I'll be watching films or watching TV shows and just avoiding wrestling. So yeah, I can't watch it all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been keeping up with I've been sort of keeping up with AEW. I mean, I haven't been watching the full Dynamite. It's just like clips and stuff. And then, I've been watching, I watched a little bit of Best of Super Juniors and World Tag League. I haven't really kept up with it daily either. And, I've been like, other than that, I mean, I've really dipped out in the other Japanese companies. And I figure, it's a great time to jump back in at the start of the year, because besides Wrestle Kingdom, you have like 1 million shows right around the new year in Japan. So I figure I'll probably try to jump back in around there. But yeah, in the meantime, we got shows to do here to close out the year. So I figure we'll do, a bunch of these Retro Roulette episodes, which I've really enjoyed doing. Hopefully you, the listener, have enjoyed listening to them. But yeah, so we have Survivor Series here. Next time out will probably be Starrcade, since obviously that became a December show for WCW. And then we'll wrap it up with the final show of the year will be the Tokyo Dome Retro Roulette to lead up to Wrestle Kingdom, where, again, just like the past ones we've done, it'll be all Tokyo Dome shows, not just New Japan, not just 1-4, and we'll see what we get, because those have been fun to do in the past and gotten a lot of wacky stuff. As far as, the Retro Roulette episodes go, if you enjoy this format, I should mention, even though the Patreon is not currently active, there is a bunch of older episodes on there. And if you want to hear more Retro Roulette episodes, you can sign up for $5 at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. Now, since the Patreon is not currently active, you will be charged only one time. You don't get charged monthly. But, if you do enjoy the format, there's a bunch of episodes up there on the Patreon that you can, still access for $5. So definitely wanted to mention that. Okay, so the theme here, Survivor Series Retro Roulette. I thought this would be an interesting one to do because, obviously for the time of year, it used to be on a Thanksgiving. The Survivor Series, for those who don't know the story, originally started by the WWF at the time to fuck with Jim Crockett Promotions and, take away the Thanksgiving tradition that was Starrcade at the time and sort of chase Starrcade into December. So, Survivor Series started out as a Thanksgiving thing, so I figured it makes sense to do the day after, American Thanksgiving, I should say. I know this year's Survivor Series already took place. I did not watch it. I don't know if you did, Liam. It sounds like it was quite horrible.
I just haven't watched it for so long, and to be fair, the one show that would often bring me back at least to check it out was Survivor Series, and it is this.
Really?
Weird. Okay, maybe not in recent years, but definitely I grew up really liking Survivor Series, and actually I feel like my brain's sort of played tricks on me because actually, as I then reflect back on it, I'm like, I'm not quite sure what I liked about it.
That's I'm glad you said that because I was going to say my intro for this was going to be. This is the first Retro Roulette episode I'm doing where I have no nostalgia for this pay-per-view at all. Because I was thinking about it, what are the great Survivor Series moments and or matches? And it's there's a lot of years where this pay-per-view was nothing.
Yeah.
And going through the to me, it's the least interesting of the big four pay-per-views for sure. And, when we see what the randomizer assigned us, I mean, there ended up being one match of these 6 matches that really surprised me, that I really enjoyed, a lot more than I expected to. The rest was not very good, as I guess we'll get into. And it was just a very interesting topic because it's I don't have any nostalgia for Survivor Series. I mean, I was thinking about what great Survivor Series moments do I remember, from my many years where I actually was watching WWE regularly. And everybody will think of the screw job, obviously, which is not a great moment. It's just a historic moment, right? There really isn't a lot else. I mean, there's a lot of Survivor Series are just not very good. I attended. Sorry, go ahead.
No, as I say, my thing is, I had a friend who I used to go and sort of when you're at the age where you start sort of sleeping around mates' houses and stuff like that, and he had a couple of Royal Rumbles on VHS, and he had, I think, Survivor Series 88 and 90. So I think what my brain's done is basically I really enjoyed going around there, and I watched them so many times, and just it was sort of tied into a time in my life and a period. And then I believed forever that I liked Survivor Series, when actually I probably like about 2 Survivor Series events, and that's about it.
What are the 2? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, I was just saying I like 88 and 90 probably because I sort of go to them and I'm like, oh, I enjoyed them. And there are some novelty. I remember having 1995, I believe, on VHS. So that was the one where they did the wild card, if I remember rightly. So wild card match, whilst it didn't really work, was kind of an interesting idea. But yeah, a lot of especially after the golden generation of when you move away from the 80s in particular into the early 90s, it really just falls off a cliff.
Yeah, I mean the 90. I was thinking off the top of my head, probably the best one to me is 96, which was the MSG one that has that really great Bret Hart and Steve Austin match, which we've covered on our 5 matches episode actually, and it has has the Rock's debut, which is at least historic, even if the match wasn't that big a deal, and it has Shawn and Sid, which again not a great match or anything, but a cool moment when Sid wins the title with that camera shot, just kind of a moment that sticks out in my mind. But yeah, thinking about Survivor Series, that comes to mind to me as one that I at least enjoyed. There really aren't many others. So
Yeah,
Well,
I think Deadly Game's probably the one as well, where if you're looking at, considering when people go back to look at the Attitude Era, they sort of say that the booking wasn't great actually on a week by week basis.
yeah.
Deadly Game at least was like the culmination of something, and
Yeah, we'll
it
get to.
was
I mean,
booked really, really
we
well.
actually got that show in the randomizer. We'll get to that, but that is like at least that probably is Vince Russo's highlight. I think with the WWF. I was going to mention I've attended 2 Survivor Series live, neither of which we got. The 2002 show, which was the first Elimination Chamber, which I have good memories of it. That's the show where Brock lost the WWE title to Big Show when Paul Heyman turned on him, and as I've told the story on this show a million times, so at this time I was still a teenager, and so I was there with my dad, and my dad went backstage looking for a place to smoke because that's the kind of person my dad is, and just happens to run into the Big Show like moments after he won the WWE title, and he didn't even know who he was really. He described him to me afterwards, like, oh, this big guy who had a belt over his shoulder. I'm like, yeah, that's the Big Show. He just won the title. And he tried to get an autograph from him, and the Big Show was like, I don't have a pen pal. I'm sorry, I don't have a pen or a paper or anything. Because he just got out of the ring because he just won the title, and he was in a place where my dad was not supposed to be. So yeah, that was Survivor Series 2002. So I would have been 16 at the time. Yeah. So the Survivor Series 2002, and then Survivor Series 2006 in Philly. I went to with my buddy Quinlan. That was that I have much less memories of, even or at least strong memories of, than the 2002 show, because it was like, if you look at the cards, it's kind of a nothing show. I mean, main event is Batista beating King Booker for the world title. Not exactly a classic. There's Mr. Kennedy and The Undertaker in a first blood match. Just not a very good show at all. So that's, not a great pay-per-view, honestly. But yeah, so that's the, I guess those two shows that I attended. We didn't get either one of them, but I figured I'd mention it. The shows we did get, we start off with, I assume you never attended Survivor Series, right?
No.
Yeah,
I was just trying to think if I've ever attended a WWF event or WWE event. I don't think I did. I think I went to a WCW Monday Nitro in London once, but that was in the dying days of WCW, so it wasn't exactly the best of events. But just never really fancied going to see the WWE live, or never really had the opportunity to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I went. So being in the Northeast U.S., I mean, there's a million shows around here. So I went to a ton of them between, the very first show I ever went to was WrestleMania 10, but I was 7 years old and barely remember it. But like a ton of shows I went to between like 98 and I think the very last show I ever went to was a pay-per-view in 2009 in Long Island. I think it's called Night of Champions. I always mix it up. I think it was a show where Triple H and Edge were the wrestled the WWE title. No, not Night of Champions. I guess it's. I guess it was something else. I don't know. I attended a pay-per-view. I attended a pay-per-view in 2009. But yes, so or maybe it was 2008. I don't know. The point is, I attended I don't know. I don't know what pay-per-view it was. But the point is, my final pay-per-view was right around there. Because I just looked up Night of Champions 2009. That was in Philly. And the one I went to was definitely in Long Island. But, the point is, I always forget this one anyway when I'm making my list of pay-per-views I attended. Because it's another really, really forgettable show that I don't even remember. But yeah, I went to a lot of WWE pay-per-views and a lot of, not that many Raws or SmackDowns. I never really liked going to TV tapings. But yeah, so a lot of different shows between like 98 and like 2008, 2009. But I have not attended a WWE show since then, and really don't have any plans to. Because
it doesn't sound like you're missing much.
They've been pretty terrible. I should mention, I meant to mention this earlier. One thing I did attend on Wednesday was the Rangers Islanders hockey game at the new UBS Arena, and I wanted to mention this mostly because there's a couple wrestling shows coming up in the next few weeks at the same arena. This is the brand new arena. They just opened right on the site of Belmont Park. So basically, right over the border when you get over the border from Queens to Long Island, they opened this brand new arena. And if you have tickets, if you're listening to this and you happen to have tickets to either Raw on this coming Monday, which I assume no one who listens to this would have tickets to that. But far more likely, Dynamite on December 8th. So that's a week from this coming Wednesday. You're in for a treat at this arena, especially if they have all the amenities open. It's like, honestly, probably the nicest arena I've ever seen. I mean, I guess it should be when it's a brand new and they spent over $1 billion on it, but it is one hell of an arena. I mean, like there's just, a million bars there that all look really nice. They have like this outdoor, the thing that I guess really surprised me is it's like they have this outdoor deck on the second level, and they call it the Heineken Terrace or something. And it basically has like a DJ, and like there's a ton of people out there partying, and it feels somehow like you just went to like an outdoor bar at a hotel or like a resort instead of an arena. I don't know if I've ever really seen anything like it in an arena before. So, if they had that open when Raw and Dynamite happen, I don't know if it's just for New York Islander games or what. I would definitely check it out. They don't charge anything to go out there either. It's just like, because the first time I saw it, I thought maybe it'd be some kind of like special thing for like season ticket holders, or there'd be a separate charge or something. But no, it's anyone can go out there apparently. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of the newer sort of like developments in sport. They do tend to just try and make them much more. They're used outside of that sort of stuff like that. Because I'm a Fulham fan, like when it comes to soccer, I guess. And we're having one of our stands rebuilt, and they've put some, I think, an infinity pool on top of one.
Oh wow!
People, like, obviously, you got to pay for that, but like basically, it is designed for like getting people with lots of money to come and spend their money in the stadium, irrelevant of whether they're watching the football. It would seem.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really, really cool arena, and there's a lot of food options too. Lots of different ones. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because I mean, the New York Islanders for so long they played in the biggest toilet in the NHL, that Nassau Coliseum, which I've been there quite a few times, and that place was a fucking dump. Easily the worst arena I've ever been to. So to see them go from that, and then they had that stop in the Barclays Center, which Barclays Center is a nice arena, but it was built for basketball, and the sightlines for hockey. Which again, when I saw, I think I only ever went to one game there because the sightlines really were that horrible. I mean, if you were on one side of the arena, you basically could not see half the ice. It was really, really bad. But yeah, so they went from that to the Barclays Center, back to Nassau, and now they go from Nassau to this palace, basically. It's like, someone moving from a trailer park to the Taj Mahal. It's really something. But yeah, I mean, so that arena was very cool. I just wanted to mention that really quickly, since there are a couple big wrestling shows coming up, at least a couple TV tapings coming up in the next few weeks. So if you happen to be going there, or if you ever do decide to go there for wrestling, since I'm sure they'll be back, is a very cool arena. The only thing that sucked is the rideshare pickup drop off was in such a weird place that the person dropping me off could not fucking find it. So it was a little weird, but maybe I'm sure they'll work those kinks out. But it's part of being they share the parking lots, I guess, for the Belmont Park racetrack. So the guy really could not figure out where the hell he was going. But I don't really think it was his fault. So I guess that's the one negative of the arena. So if you happen to be taking Uber there like I did, just I guess keep that in mind. It is it's really close to my house. It's 20 minutes. So that is pretty cool to have a arena that nice, that close.
Do you plan to go there more often then?
For sure. Every time the Rangers and the Kings are playing the Islanders, I'll definitely go. And then maybe if the ticket prices right now are super, super, super high, because of the brand newness, I guess. But if the Islanders keep playing as bad as they are, and the ticket prices start coming down, I'll probably just go to random games because it's so close. But anyway, let's get into the one thing I will not be going to is Monday Night Raw, which I don't know. I'm not saying you have to pay me to go, but you would definitely have to gift me a ticket, let's just say, and perhaps maybe buy me some booze to get through the show. But I will be at Dynamite, so I do have tickets to that on December 8th. So if you're going to Dynamite too, feel free to shout me out, I guess. All right, so let's get into the actual topic here, the Survivor Series shows that we got. First of all, we start out with the very first show in 1987, which I was happy we got the first show, and on top of that, we got the very first match in Survivor Series history. So that's what we got as our first match here. Now, you might be like, oh, what are the odds of that? But there are only 4 matches on this show. So once we got the show, the odds of getting the first match were 1-4. So not very bad at all, honestly. Looking at the card, I would have loved to get that women's match with the Jumping Bomb Angels in it. That would have been pretty cool. But I don't really regret getting the opener instead of like the main event or that big tag team clusterfuck. So
yeah, I feel like, to be fair, I like the look of most of these matches in some capacity. Like I said, the Jumping Bomb Angels would be great to have had a bit of a look at. And also the tag, the sort of the massive humanity, I guess, in the tag match is interesting. Although I do think that the quality of the teams in the next year's one was better, so therefore I was a bit less inclined. What always interested me about the main event of this one was that Bam Bam Bigelow was made to look like a star, and if you never really watched any of the TV or never really saw, or even to be fair, even if you watch most of the pay-per-views around it, I had WrestleMania 4 on VHS, and he got counted out in the first round to one-man gang. So I'm like, how is this man being pushed so highly in this match, considering, as far as I was concerned, he did very little else?
Yeah, I see what you mean there. But yeah, as far as the card, it's kind of cool to get the first match in Survivor Series history. So this show took place November 26, 1987, from the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio. A claimed attendance of 21,300. I don't know about that one. Sounds a little high for what looked like a standard arena, but I don't know. The match here was the team of the Brutus Beefcake, Jake Roberts, Jim Duggan, Ricky Steamboat, and Randy Savage, defeating Danny Davis, Hercules, King Harley Race, Ron Bass, and the Honky Tonk Man in 24 minutes exactly. So this, of course, was a traditional Survivor Series 10-man elimination match. All the matches on this first show were elimination matches. So, this is not just the first Survivor Series. It's the first, I guess you would say, non-WrestleMania regular pay-per-view, because you do have the Wrestling Classic one-night tournament in November of 85, 2 years earlier. That was the first, I guess. That was the first pay-per-view period, I think, because I don't think WrestleMania 1 was a pay-per-view. So Wrestling Classic would be, I think, the first pay-per-view. And then this would be the first, I guess you would say, regular pay-per-view that continues to this day, since SummerSlam and the Royal Rumble were not yet pay-per-views. So the team captains here, the Honky Tonk Man and Randy Savage. Honky, of course, in the middle of his legendary IC title reign at this point. He beat Ricky Steamboat for the belt at a Superstars taping on June 2nd. Steamboat, of course, had beaten Savage in their very famous WrestleMania 3 match on March 29th. Now, Savage's face turn actually came about because Honky Tonk Man just randomly declared himself to be the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And keep in mind, he's like 4 months into his title reign at this point, so definitely a heel move here. I don't know the date on this. I did see a video clip of the segment, but there was no actual date on it, so I assume we're sometime like late summer, early fall. But yeah, so he declares himself the greatest champion of all time. Savage comes out to confront him, and he had been getting cheered heavily as a heel at this point anyway, so it was more of like a de facto face turn than anything else. He just came out and was like, "Hey, Honky, I'm the greatest IC champion of all time," and that was it, basically. So it led to a match on Saturday night's main event on September 23rd. Savage won that by DQ. They wrestled throughout the fall. Honky was starting to win by countout and DQ, and the feud stretched all the way into February 88 before they finally went their separate ways. Savage, of course, went on to win the WWF title for the first time in the WrestleMania 4 tournament. Honky went on to hold the IC title, until SummerSlam 88, where he loses the Ultimate Warrior in 31 seconds. But we're right smack dab in the middle of their feud here, and that's why they're both captaining these teams. There's some other issues too. There's I think King Harley Race had an issue with Jim Duggan, I believe. They kind of So Jim Duggan, Harley Race hit Jim Duggan with his own 2x4. That set that up. But yeah, we got a quick promo from Honky before the match that includes some lovely footage of him shoving down Miss Elizabeth in the ring at a unspecified point. And he talks so fast in his promo, you can barely hear him. And everyone else in the background is just doing that WWF mid-80s heels, they're just making random like grunts and noises in the background.
I think that's why I like the Survivor Series that I watched when I was younger, because it's that thing of like it's all so colourful and the characters are so big and kind of these kind of groups coming together and like you said, making sort of the generic heel noises and the generic babyface noises and just like when you're quite young, you're like, oh my god, this seems so amazing, even though the action is not great.
Yeah, there's a cool element to Survivor Series where like the you have all these wrestlers coming together to form these teams. It's almost like a sports team or something. The problem I feel like they always have with these Survivor Series, with the Survivor Series setup in general, is it's like there's nothing on the line, right? So it's just who wins or loses these matches. And they tried to fix this kind of with that Ultimate Survivor thing in 1990, but as it worked it worked at the start of the WWF because wins and losses in general still kind of mattered. But as we've gone on now, it just feels like these elimination matches really don't matter at all because, who wins and loses a match on WWE doesn't fucking matter ever. So it feels like there's nothing on the line here and there's no reason to care. Especially as they made it about brand supremacy.
So sorry, it's occasionally very strange as well because what would happen sort of in the earlier ones, if I remember rightly, you'd have these wrestlers that would fight a lot on house shows and then their kind of blow-off finish was in a Survivor Series match.
Indeed,
someone would pin someone else and then that was kind of the feud over. And it felt really odd.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a different time and a different setup. So, it's one of these things I don't think translates very well to modern WWE, and they've kind of tried to get away from it at times and then end up going back to it. And it's just, I don't know. It is a very strange, setup. But I do think the current setup where it's all brand versus brand and they have all these like champion versus champion matches for nothing, I think really does not work because, nobody on earth cares about brand versus brand. So, that's, I think, a big part of the problem too. Because they change who's on each brand changes every 2 seconds anyway. So it's like, you get these situations where, 4 of the 5 people in the Raw brand on the, the Raw elimination match side have all just been on SmackDown a month ago. And it's like, it just feels fucking stupid.
They're trying to give it stakes, but actually the stakes somehow devalue it even further.
Yeah, like it just doesn't feel like there is any. Because like, who really cares that Raw beats SmackDown, right? It doesn't lead to anything for Raw, It just doesn't work at all. But back to 87, I guess we get the heels come out at first to the generic King music for King Harley Race. If you don't know what that is, it's the exact same music Jerry the King Lawler uses to this day. And then Honky Tonk Man gets his own entrance with his theme music. And then the promo for the Babyface team features Ricky Steamboat making like generic karate noises, just kind of funny. Jim Duggan is promising payback for Harley Race for hitting him with his own 2x4. Tough guy. And then a fashionably late Randy Savage shows up to say nothing much interesting. And in fact, the audio gets cut off at the end. I can't say I was that upset about it. We get some generic overdub theme music over what I assume was Ricky Steamboat's theme song because he's the first one out. And then Savage, like Honky, gets his own entrance with his own famous theme song. So Brutus Beefcake and Hercules, they do the first bit of wrestling in Survivor Series history. So there's your trivia answer, I guess. They don't do much. Then they lock up. And then Beefcake then struts around. And the crowd absolutely loves it. So, they'd have to do a lot to get a crowd reaction in 1987. Then at that point, once they start going, though, it actually isn't a bad little exchange. Hercules, I don't know. I don't know a ton about Hercules, but like he's one of these guys that I always, I would have thought of as not very good, I guess. But like I thought he looked good in this match. I don't know.
Yeah, he had his moments, like just generally in his run in the WWF. But what would happen often is that he'd kind of become quite stagnant quite quickly.
Mm.
So he would never be able to sustain like a heel push or a face push. But I always thought he had potential.
Yeah,
but never quite realized.
He looked good in this match to me. Beefcake ends up getting Hercules in a sleeper. The other heels all run in the ring, and he ends up cleaning house on them all with hip tosses. And then we get the first Survivor Series elimination history. Another trivia answer: a super lame double countout. Duggan and Race, the first of like 500 double countouts to come at Survivor Series. Duggan and Race brawl at ringside. They are both eliminated. On the upside, though, I got both of them out of the match. And Harley Race, especially at this point, looked super slow. And when he came in, he grounded the match to a halt. Now, I don't know how he hung on for like 3 more years after this. But to be fair, after he left the WWF at the very beginning of '89, he never really wrestled full time again before his retirement. So,
when he was brought into WWF, sorry, he was opposite Hogan. Like, he still was able to put a good match or two together. To be fair to him, considering, as you said, he was, he'd been wrestling for years by that point. But yeah, how he managed to keep going after that was strange.
Brutus ends up blind tagging himself in while Savage is fighting Ron Bass. He immediately nails Bass with a high knee and pins him. So that makes it 4-3 baby faces now. That was actually a very well-timed spot. Like, I thought he got the tag and he basically charged right in and hit him with the knee before Bass could even really notice that he was coming. So, I don't know, Brutus Beefcake, another guy who I always think of as being bad. I thought he was actually pretty good in this match.
Yeah, I think he gets an unfair shake sometimes, but actually I've put down here in my notes that I made as going along, like, he was very over during this time period. Like, he was actually very good as part of the Dream Team tag team before that. Like, he was serviceable, and Valentine did a lot of the work. But when he turned babyface, like, the fans loved him, and he was probably top 3 or 5 in the company at times. Like, he was kind of up there, really.
Yeah. I feel like he gets a lot of shit mostly for his WCW run where he was horrible and not over at all. But, mid-'80s WWF, he was...
To be understood.
Yeah, to be understood. Now, I do always like that his finisher was the high knee when he was the booty man WCW, because get it, the high knee. But yes. The match gets very boring, though, at this point. Honky Tonk Man very slowly pounds away on Beefcake. Brutus almost starts making a comeback, but Danny Davis, not the OVW Danny Davis, the referee Danny Davis, who also was Mr. X at times when he was also a ref, he kind of hits into Beefcake when he bounces in the ropes in front of him, and then Honky hits the shake, rattle, and roll, which is just a normal ass swinging neck breaker. That's his finisher, and that gets the pin. Brutus kicks out right at 3. That was kind of funny, I thought. But we're back to even, 3-on-3. And this is, like, again, it just gets so boring here. Hercules has a very long headlock on Savage. He finally makes a hot tag to Ricky Steamboat. That, at least, is a pretty entertaining hot tag. He hits a flying... I'm sorry, I missed elimination. Jake Roberts, I guess, was feuding with Danny Davis at this point. Hit a DDT on him to eliminate him. So that gave the faces a 3-on-2 advantage. And that's when it got boring after that. But Steamboat hits a flying chop on Hercules. He body slams him. He tags in Randy Savage, who drops the big elbow on Hercules to eliminate him. So it's now Honky Tonk Man against the world. So it's now 3-on-1. Savage just beats the crap out of him with punches. He misses a charge in the corner, though, so Honky can take back over. Steamboat tags in, quickly takes it to Honky. Then he tags in Jake the Snake. Crowd doesn't care about the weird... I mean, it was weird. Like, I thought at first the crowd was surprisingly into the weird psychology of 3 baby faces taking turns beating the crap out of a single heel. Maybe they just really wanted to see Honky Tonk Man get his ass kicked so bad that they were fine with it. But after a little bit, they do suddenly get, like, a little less fired up than they were earlier in the match. So maybe the weirdness of it does finally, like, start to make a difference. But Honky goes over the top rope from atomic drop from Savage. He then takes a walk and lets himself get counted out for the final elimination. So couldn't let him get pinned, I guess, because he's the IC champion. But still kind of a stupid ending. It was all right.
Yeah, I liked it. I agree with you, though. I've noted down the fact that there was quite long kind of rest spots, which for a multi-man match where you expect to, like, have action kind of going on at all times, because you can freshen people up. I kind of get that they were building towards hot tags, because you had, like, some of the best hot tags, like in Steamboat's a great hot tag, and Savage is a great hot tag, and you're building up towards that. But what that means is that you have big chunks of the match that are just really boring. Yeah. I like the fact that Davis was fodder for the DDT. You needed someone to take a DDT, so Davis has kind of used his purpose at this point, I would say, so therefore get rid of him. I also, I liked the ending in some ways, because it does protect Honky Tonk Man, but the fans seemed happy that, you were seeing, your 3 big baby faces kind of beating down the heel, but he still gets away and can be smarmy about it in the end as well. So it kind of worked, but it is, just long, very long.
Yeah, I mean this felt longer than 26 minutes, honestly. So it was all right. It was kind of boring at times. The crowd was super into it though, so that always counts for something. And Steamboat and Savage, both looked good. Beefcake looked good too, as I mentioned. Hercules was the standout for sure on a kind of weak heel team. I went 2 3/4. Nothing you got to go out of your way to watch. It's nothing that I would even call fine, but I would say it was all right. Not slightly above average, let's say.
Yeah, I was to say I'm not always someone to give star ratings necessarily because I've never done it, and therefore like it's always a bit of a thing that I struggle to get my head around. But like I would say, yeah, it's a sort of two and a half, sort of like it's a very very average match. Crowd's really good. The character's really good in terms of like the people who are there. Actually, the face team kind of low key really good when you look at I know obviously Jim Duggan and Bruce Beefcake get a bit of flack from various parts of what they've done, but they are at that time period they were both kind of over people. Savage, Steamboat, and Roberts of course were huge stars at that time. So therefore, again, it's kind of a low key good team. It is a bit weird though because you do have Savage, Steamboat, and Roberts teaming together a year after first Roberts and Savage feuded with Steamboat. So that's kind of one of the other issues about Survivor Series, is that suddenly you have these people together. I mean, apparently Savage tried to end Steamboat's career just a year before, or earlier that year. So it's a strange kind of mixing of people that doesn't quite make sense, but it's kind of cool if you don't think about it too much.
So there you go. There's our first match. Let's go over to 1990, which was the next show we got. Survivor Series 1990, November 22nd. It was from the Hartford Civic Center in Hartford, Connecticut. A now acclaimed attendance of 16,000. Looking at the card, the match we got here was the Hulkamaniacs, Hulk Hogan, Jim Duggan, the Big Boss Man, and Tugboat beating the Natural Disasters, Earthquake, Dino Bravo, Haku, and the Barbarian in 1449. I can't say anything really stands out. Like, I wish I had gotten that. Maybe the $1 Million Team against the Dream Team to see the debut of The Undertaker. I did watch the entrance just to see it because I was like, yeah, that was kind of cool. And, this was the year they did the Survivor of All Survivors match, which ended up being just an excuse to have Hogan and Warrior, win the match together. But, it was an interesting idea that I'm not sure really worked that super well. It did kind of affect the booking of everything else where you had to have guys in it survive who you were willing to have lose in the end. So, and the Ultimate Survivor match ended up going so quick, only went 9 minutes that, I just don't know if that was really worth it. So did they do that any other years or was this the only year they did it?
No, I think the problem was that it kind of, kayfabe sort of thing, it kind of rips it apart a bit, doesn't it? Because why is Hogan with Santana and Warrior? I mean, what's the reasoning behind that necessarily? Oh, they're the good guys, are they? And they're the bad guys. It doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
It kind of revealed a bit too much, perhaps in that kind of way, and they decided it didn't quite work. And like you said, it does effectively. It's all about just getting Hogan and Warrior together and then win, and it kind of it wasn't a great match, and it wasn't really the stuff that came before it wasn't really worth it either. In terms of the matches I liked, I've watched this show a lot. I really liked the team. Well, not the match necessarily, but the team of the Visionaries. So you had Rick Martel, the Warlord, Paul Roman, Hercules as Power and Glory, and they clean swept the team they fought. And the Warlord's not great, but he's a specimen of a man. And then Roma and Hercules together. Power and Glory was a great little team for that time, and Rick Martel was, the arrogant model. They were one of my favourite teams of all time when I look back at the sort of the teams over the years. Really, really good, really, really good heel unit.
Mm-hmm. And then the team they beat was the team of the Vipers, which was Jake Roberts, Jimmy Snuka, and the Rockers. So just a little note there. But yeah, the match we got here, this was during the Hogan versus Earthquake feud. So basically, Earthquake debuted almost exactly 1 year earlier on an episode of Superstars, a pretty classic segment where Jimmy Hart picked somebody out of the crowd to sit on Dino Bravo's back while he did push-ups. And, Earthquake, John Tenta, this gigantic man sitting there in the crowd, all the fans are pointing like him, pick him, pick him. So they pick him, but this was a setup, though. And the Ultimate Warrior comes out. He was feuding with Dino Bravo at the time. He comes out to do the same thing, but Earthquake acts like he's going to sit on his back, but then he just butt splashes him and they leave the Warrior laying. Now, what I always found odd is this did not lead to any kind of big Warrior Earthquake feud. It just led to some more Warrior versus Bravo IC title matches at the house shows towards the end of '89. Where you'd think Warrior would want some revenge on the guy who butt splashed him and left him laying, but they never had a big feud together. They just had 3 matches total. They finally had a house show IC defense in March 1990, and they had 2 dark matches at the Wrestling Challenge tapings, 2 different Wrestling Challenge tapings in early '91. But Earthquake, instead of feuding with Warrior, would have this big signature feud with Hulk Hogan in 1990, which was Warrior's WWF title reign year, obviously. But basically, very simple feud. Earthquake jumped Hogan on an episode of the Brother Love Show in May of 1990, one of those WWF talk shows on a show. And the feud apparently did really good business for WWF on the house show circuit that year. So, they met in a singles match at SummerSlam. Hogan won it via countout, which led to some more big house show matches throughout the fall. And this Survivor Series match, essentially the last gasp for the feud here. To make things a little more confusing, Earthquake's future WWF Tag Team title partner, Typhoon, is on the other team, even though they'd eventually take on the team name of the Natural Disasters themselves. So, a little confusing there. Oh, someone's drilling outside. That's very loud. Sorry about that if you can hear that, folks. But yes, we're actually still many months away from that turn. Tugboat wouldn't turn heel and change over to Typhoon until May of '91. The thing that was always kind of weird about that team is, obviously Tugboat turns heel, he becomes Typhoon, they team up together, but they actually spent very little time as heels together because the team turned babyface in early '92, so they spent more time together as faces. So I always thought that Natural Disasters face run was a little weird. It's like,
you feel like having 2 men, sort of 400 pounds, they just are naturally going to be good heels. Can just squash teams and do be bullies and stuff like that. So as much as I love Earthquake. To be fair, I thought John Tenter is a great wrestler when he was at his peak. I'm not a massive fan of Tugboat, to be fair, but as a team, you could kind of hide a lot of his weaknesses behind what John Tenter could do. But so to have him as the babyface tag team was not using them to their best, but they were also during a time when that heyday of the WWF tag team division had kind of died off a little bit, and there were still some good teams around, don't get me wrong, but if you're heading into 92 and 93, if you look at what they had compared to say those teams they had in the 97 and 98 87 and 88 even tag Survivor Series matches, they just lost so many of those teams. Teams have moved on, teams have split up, so they didn't have much to work with.
And that was their big feud with Muddy Inc. Basically, that's how they turned face. As Jimmy Hart turned on them for the team of DiBiase and IRS. And I don't know, I can't imagine anyone ever being a Muddy Inc. fan. I mean, just such a boring team. But who knows? Not much of note though from the pre-match interview here from the Hulkamaniacs. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to say about that? It was kind of just a
not
thing.
Particularly. To be fair, I'll in terms of time pressures, I think I just glossed over slightly the introductions there because I was a little bit sort of getting to the match really. As you said, often what happened was it was like a generic heel, generic babyface, and that was kind of what you had. You didn't really you weren't going to get any inspired commentary necessarily about what was going to happen next.
Tugboat and his Toot Toot theme song got a surprisingly big pop. He was quite over here, I guess, from being the storyline where he was Hulk Hogan's friend who helped bring him back to the company or whatever. Jim Duggan has yellow ribbons wrapped around his 2x4. It's some kind of tribute to the troops. The Gulf War is starting, I guess. America's bombing somebody. We usually are. Hogan's pop, enormous as well. Enormous pop for Hogan, I have to say that.
Yeah, he's been on top for 6 years. He's been basically on top for 6 years as well, which is that's what's crazy about it, is that they're still maintaining that kind of level of passion and joy, to see him.
Yeah, he obviously lost to Warrior at WrestleMania earlier that year, but that did not do anything that helped his popularity. It was very, very strange. I don't know. People always said he got more over from that than Warrior did, and Warrior himself, really kind of was flopping as champion at this point, especially at the house shows. So Duggan and Haku start off here. Not much interesting happens. Duggan eventually gets cut off. The heels start tagging in and out to beat on him. but he makes a hot-ish tag to Boss Man, because like Boss Man does like a couple moves and then gets cut off too, but then he just puts Haku away immediately with the Boss Man slam for the first elimination. So it was a little bit of a weird
it felt
sequence.
very underwhelming. I remember I made a note of that. It just like it kind of. I think you mentioned the high knee in the first one where it was really nicely set up, and therefore you can go, okay, a man gets kneed in the face, therefore he gets pinned. Fine, I can deal with that. And admittedly, as a boss man slam kind of thing, he did a move that would have beaten someone, but just something about the setup.
All right, folks, we got cut off, so a little bit of an awkward transition here. But after Boss Man pinned Haku, it was 4-3 Hulkamaniacs. Earthquake comes in. Duggan can't do much of anything with him for quite a bit, but then he finally seems to be kind of getting somewhere. He hits a few shoulder blocks in a row. He's not actually knocking him down, but he's like stunning him. But then as soon as he backs up on the ropes again to do another one, Jimmy Hart pulls down the top rope, sending him flying out of the ring, which I thought was both a kind of well-timed interference spot. I mean, I thought it was pretty damn well-timed. On the other hand, it kind of made no sense because it was right in front of the ref. Even the announcers were like, how is that not DQ? Duggan, grabs his 2x4. He chases Jimmy Hart around the ring. He gets back in the ring. He hits Earthquake with the 2x4 a couple times, and that is a disqualification. So Duggan is eliminated, and it is now 3-on-3.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I watched these kind of in reverse order, just through quirk of fate, really. And I just remember sitting here watching this, being like, I know this is late on in Duggan's career in WWF. How is he going to get out of getting pinned?
Yeah,
because it was basically every single Survivor Series. There was, he'd find a way to basically get eliminated by count out or DQ'd, and hitting Earthquake with a 2x4 is one way.
Hogan comes in. He cleans house on all three guys. He Ever the Sportsman, he rakes Earthquake's eyes and then slams him without much effort. He then small packages Dino Bravo for the pin out of nowhere. When the fuck have you ever seen Hulk Hogan pin someone with a flash cradle?
That was the greatest spot I've ever seen. No. It was very much. I genuinely laughed out loud. I just didn't remember it.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Wasn't the best. It wasn't the best small package, to be fair. Wasn't the tightest. But, you give him props for trying.
It was like, geez. But yeah, so now it's 3-2. Barbarian kicks Boss Man in the back from the apron while Boss Man's trying to fight Earthquake, and that lets Earthquake drop a pair of elbows on him for the pin. That takes us back to 2-2. Hulk comes right back in. He goes at Earthquake again. That goes on for a while. And then we finally get the Earthquake versus Tugboat big fat guy showdown. But it lasts for like 2 seconds because that coward Hogan pulls Earthquake out of the ring from behind. They all brawl out to the floor. Earthquake rams Hogan's back into the ring post, and we get another super lame double count out for Earthquake and Tugboat. And that leaves us with just Hogan and Barbarian. Not the most exciting final two guys because, you can probably guess what happens from there. Barbarian beats down Hogan, hits a big pile driver on him. The pile driver looked kind of good, actually. But then just beats on him for what feels like an eternity. Hits a weak flying clothesline off the top. Hogan kicks out too and hulks up and puts Barbarian away with the usual for the win. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what I would say, is I was surprised by how long Barbarian was on top, actually, because I was, in my head, I was like, okay, so the match is going to finish in the next minute or so. He's going to hit a big move. Hogan's going to hulk up. But actually, he did beat me. It wasn't the most exciting beatdown ever, but, to have them in the ring together for as long as they were, I was kind of surprised, really.
Yeah. I mean, what's weird is he's not that far away from jumping to WCW, so... I mean, I guess still like another year and a half.
Yeah. I also quite enjoyed, before Tugboat was eliminated, Gorilla Monsoon, basically Tugboat had been so pointless in the match up to that point that Gorilla Monsoon actually forgot he was there. Because at some point, I'm pretty sure he went, Hogan's left on his own. And then he had to be reminded that Tugboat was actually on the ring apron at that point, waiting for a tag. So it sort of sums up his involvement in the match.
So that's that, I guess, for this match. This started out pretty fun, but really lost steam by the end. And the Earthquake versus Tugboat showdown, only lasting like 2 seconds total, was just kind of stupid. I don't know. I guess I just didn't trust Tugboat to do anything, but it was it felt like the entire match was building to that. and then they get to it and it's over before you you can blink.
There are probably better matches to see this, but if you do watch it, what you will see is, I mean, Earthquake has some great spots in it, I think, as well, that we sort of glossed over a little bit. Like, I like the fact that at the start he was being held back by the other heels, but also as the match was going on, he hits Hogan with a great power slam out the corner.
Welcome to Parent Teacher Night. Oh, yes, Miss Garner.
If you have one of those airline credit cards, you're probably not earning double miles on every purchase.
You're right. My card only gets extra miles on some types of purchases.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles everywhere.
Wait, but where can we use them?
You can use Capital One Venture Miles on any travel purchase.
Venture gets an A+.
Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
And he also does a spot, I think he did it quite a few times on the house shows, but basically Big Boss Man came off the top rope and he caught him in midair and slammed him, which just showed how, impressive a specimen, I guess, he was in terms of just the ability to catch a man of that size and then dump him. But yeah, ultimately he gets counted out. Hogan wins, no surprises there.
But yeah, this, I went 2.5. I thought it was average. Nothing's going to offend you or anything like that, but I can't really recommend watching it that strongly either. And go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I was just breathing in. Just basically the idea that I'm kind of with you there in some ways. I just think it wasn't as good as the first one. The first one was a better and more interesting thing, probably because the teams were just better. Like the people who were there, mainly the face team. The face team were more popular, more interesting people, better wrestlers, all those things. This was just always going to end up with Hogan winning.
Yeah. The other thing about the 1990 Survivor Series I have to mention is this is the fucking gobbledygooker show. Oh, so God. When you think about it, how fucking weird is it? There's been 2 separate Survivor Series shows now built around eggs. The giant egg here and the golden egg or whatever for this year. Just very strange.
Yeah, I follow people on Twitter. I don't actually read much about what's happening in wrestling at the moment in terms of WWE. So therefore, I've seen lots of pictures and I've seen lots of tweets, but I have no idea about the egg. Like, I've seen it. I've got no idea what that was.
I really don't know either, honestly.
So confusing.
Yeah. So we skip ahead now all the way. The next show we got on the randomizer was 1998. So that is our next randomly selected show. So this is a pretty famous show. This is the Deadly Game Tournament show, November 15th, 1998, from the Kiel Center in St. Louis, Missouri, an attendance of 19,322. So the match we got here was a first-round match in the Deadly Game Tournament for the WWF title. Steve Austin defeats the Big Boss Man by DQ in 3:20. Yes, 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So one of 2 very short matches we got here on this show. 2 straight Big Boss Man matches, too, because we got Boss Man within 1991. But yeah, this is the WWF title tournament. So if you don't remember this, I'll give you the rundown of why we were having a one-night 14-man tournament for the WWF title. So Undertaker and Kane, they simultaneously pinned Steve Austin in a triple threat match for the title at Breakdown in Your House in September of 98. The next month, they were having a singles match between the 2 of them to determine who the champion was, and Steve Austin was special guest referee. He was basically required to name a winner or else Vince would fire him. He stunned both guys and left them laying, so Vince did fire him. Shane McMahon reinstated him, which resulted in Vince disowning him and kicking him down to referee, which Shane had actually been a referee. You could see him at ringside in that 1990 Survivor Series we just talked about as a ringside referee. But yeah, this all turned out to be a weird, big conspiracy, because Vince Russo was booking after all. And Shane McMahon would end up turning on Steve Austin later on this Survivor Series night to, help Mankind beat him. And then that would also turn out to be a conspiracy too, because then everybody would turn on Mankind in the finals against The Rock, who would be revealed to be the real corporate champion. But yeah, this whole Deadly Game tournament on this show, the little Vince Shane soap opera swerve, probably the best stuff Vince Russo ever booked. It helped a lot that it came before the McMahon feuding and teaming up again stuff became such a huge cliche. Like this was the first version of it, so we hadn't yet been I guess we hadn't yet been like exposed to it over and over and over and over again to the point where it didn't make any fucking it didn't do anything to us by that point.
It started to get a little bit silly. I think I'd forgotten how we'd got to this tournament, so the whole double pinning stuff, that was where you had started to move away a little bit, I guess, from what was prime kind of Vince and Austin, but like it still had legs in some ways, and the characters were still, good enough and big enough and kind of engaging enough that actually, fair enough. Like it was good, but
and it set up Austin, and this set up Austin and Rock, obviously, which that was really good. The problem, obviously, with where Vince Russo really goes off the rails is the fucking Undertaker's too much into his character. And he's stalking Vince McMahon, but then it turns out Vince McMahon was behind the whole time. Like that is where 1999 and Vince Russo really just fucking starts to go completely off the rails. And there's a lot of Vince Shane drama in that too, where Shane turns on him and takes over the corporation, and then it turns out that he was actually Vince was in on it the whole time, and they merged to form the corporate ministry, and it's just it gets really stupid in like early '99.
The classic feud going on too long, or storyline going on too long. It's happening with WCW at the same time, the NWO, but like the idea of Vince McMahon as the big bad just needed to die off at that point, but obviously didn't.
They did kill it off, I guess, July '99 when they had Austin, I guess, beat the Undertaker in a match where Vince had to leave, but then he came back as a babyface weirdly, and then he turned heel again at WrestleMania 2000, and it just kind of went on forever at that point. And I don't know, like when were we finally free of Vince as a regular heel character? Probably not until sporadically he would disappear. But I don't think he would be gone for good until about like 2008 or something. I don't know. It was really because he had the whole DX feud in 2000. Yeah, I had the DX feud in 2006 where he was still a top heel. So I don't know. That might be his last big feud. Okay. Oh no, is that his last big feud? Maybe. No, because he did the Bobby Lashley feud 2007. I feel like he feuded with Cena. I don't know. He's feuded with a bunch of people, so it did take a long fucking time. But yeah, but as far as this, like you said way earlier, like this felt like it at least was building to this, like it felt like the fall of '98 was really building up to this between all the stuff with Mankind, where like Mankind was like Vince's weird adopted son, but the fans also liked him. And then, they finally blew that off with Vince turning on him. Just it felt like a big moment, this show.
Yeah, it's a rare example of like a swerve that works.
Yeah.
Like it did, it built, and it put heat on the right people. Like it made people go, oh, I'm really angry at Vince and The Rock, and so on and so forth. So it did its job, and it's I've sort of put here. I remember like not remembering much about the matches themselves because I don't think match quality really mattered. Yeah. It was all about like the sort of stage by stage, and at the end of it, like I don't want to compare it to like good films or anything like that, but like you can kind of go back and go, oh, okay, so when this happened, this is why it was happening, and then when this happened, this is why it was happening, because Bossman fought Austin, and then obviously fought The Rock as well in the first round, and and there's loads of little moving pieces where you go, oh, okay, that's what's happened.
Yeah, so let me explain that really quickly. So basically, the first round, Vince gives Mankind a mystery opponent, which turned out to be Dwayne Gill, a longtime jobber returning, and that made sense since Vince was still pretending to be on Mankind's side at that point. If people are wondering why it's a 14-man tournament, by the way, Undertaker and Kane both got a bye to the quarterfinals. That also made sense because they both pinned the champion. So that part of it made sense too. Austin fought Bossman in the first round, the match we're about to get into, and then Rock was supposed to face Triple H in the first round, and Vince replaced him with the Big Boss Man, and they have Bossman basically charge him and get cradled by the Rock and get pinned in 3 seconds. And the idea was that was like Vince actually telling Bossman to go out there and lose to the Rock. So in hindsight, it was like he was giving Rock an easy path, which we didn't know at the time. We thought Vince was basically pretending he hated the Rock because, oh, you're the people's champion and I hate the people. So, but yeah, that turned out to obviously be a conspiracy. So yeah, it was a rare example of like swerve booking and conspiracy booking actually working. And then Russo would go on to book 5,000 more of these things that didn't make any sense and didn't work at all. So, starting, like I said, in the very next year with all the corporate ministry bullshit. And, Vince is the higher power. As far as matches I would have liked to get, I mean, it would have been cool to get that Mankind and Austin match where Shane turns on Austin. Would have been cool to get the Rock and Mankind final. Those are really the only two matches on this card that are probably worth getting.
There were better matches, I'm sure, on the thing, but I did quite like getting the. It does. I know. I forgot. The Dwayne Gill match happens first, if I remember rightly. But this is quite early on, and like it's nice because it sort of sets the narrative in play. Basically, this is like him setting one of his hitmen on Austin and trying to wipe out someone so the Mankind can go through. And so it was cool to see the start of it. I did actually weirdly like it, even though it was only about 3 minutes long and not a very good match.
So Boss Man, he tries to attack Austin as he's making his entrance. Pretty much gets his ass kicked. Austin throws him hard in the steps. Throws him back in the ring, beats on him some more as the bell rings. But Boss Man quickly comes back with a low blow right in front of the ref, which JR correctly points out should be a DQ, but isn't for some reason. Lawler implies the ref did not DQ Boss Man because he works for Vince McMahon, but then he does DQ him later, so that doesn't really make any sense. They just do a bunch of punching and kicking, not much interesting here, but the heat is, of course, off the charts. Just absolutely insane because it's Steve Austin in 1998. They keep cutting to a split screen with Vince and watching with the Stooges, including Sergeant Slaughter, who I guess is still commissioner at this point, but he's about to get replaced by Shawn Michaels very shortly.
If you ever wanted to know that your match wasn't that important, like in terms of the in-ring, have your pay-per-view match have like split screen with what's happening backstage.
Exactly. Then Austin throws Boss Man to the outside. Boss Man just suddenly hits him with his nightstick for the DQ after 3 minutes. Vince and company are happy about this, I guess, thinking it's fine for Austin to get killed with the nightstick, even though it obviously means Austin advances in the tournament. Austin would end up getting a bye to semifinals. Now, this made no sense. So X-Pac and Regal go to a double countout in their first round match. Vince comes out to try to restart it. X-Pac is deemed unable to continue because Regal kicked his ass. Now, Vince is the owner and chairman of the company. Why can't he just declare that means Regal goes through since Regal was able to continue and X-Pac wasn't? Why would that give Austin a bye? It's very bizarre. But it was one of these things where one of the things I've always hated about the heel GM, the heel owner, the heel authority figure gimmick is like sometimes there are like weird restraints on their power that make no sense, and sometimes there aren't, right? And because the entire thing, when you really think about it, makes no sense that the authority figure could be. I mean, they should be able to just fire the guy, or just keep having.
You could put every barrier in front of them that you want to.
Yeah.
You could restart every match until your person wins. You can.
Yeah.
Do what you want, isn't it? So it doesn't make much sense. I remember that match, at the X-Pac winning Regal match, being very, very odd. I haven't watched it since, to be fair, but I seem to remember, the ending in particular, like the way it ended, it did seem very, very like something hadn't quite gone to plan in some ways. But I guess it was around the time that Regal was really struggling, if I remember rightly.
So Regal was in
the backstage. So
Regal he's a man, such a man.
I mean, a great song is not a great gimmick,
but it was weird because so he's in this real man's man gimmick. This blue collar hard hat gimmick, and then he's coming out and I don't think he's mad that X-Pac is European champion because he's not European. It was like a very weird mixed message to Americans, especially because God bless you Europeans, your image is not hard hat construction worker here to Americans.
No,
and Regal comes back, obviously in 2 years after he has to go to rehab for his drug problem, which you kind of talked about. And then he has a weird little stint in WCW that I always forget he went back there in 99. But he comes back to WWF in late 2000. And that obviously is the far more famous William Regal run where he's, the snobby Brit and he's mad that Al Snow's European champion. And just that gimmick makes a lot more sense to be mad that some American is European champion. Here they're like, oh, he's mad X-Pac is European champion. I'm like, why? Like doesn't he have a fucking backhoe to operate? Like, why does he care who the European champion is? Just very weird messages with this gimmick. But yeah, the match itself here, not much of a match at all here. I was generous and gave it a single star. Two guys punching each other for 3 minutes until a stupid DQ.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Big Boss Man. Sort of has the sort of offense that kind of makes this match work in some ways, as in he's quite physical, and you kind of the punch aren't stiffest, but they are kind of they look physical, and his moves look physical, and so that. However, he did use quite a few chin locks for a very short very short match, which obviously weren't the most exciting, but kind of made sense because he was trying to rough someone up. I did love the ending though. I did love the fact that he just kind of went, fuck it, I'm just gonna hit him, and then that was effectively it. It kind of all we had to do really was cause him problems, cause him some damage, and hopefully make it harder for him to get through to the next round. So yeah, it wasn't a great match, but I did quite enjoy it. And McMahon at the end laughing as the split screen's on, I also loved, because again, it just, in terms of like creating heat on a character, it was produced really well, I thought.
So there you go. So there's your Deadly Game 98 tournament there. So we move forward again to the year 2000 this time, so not that forward. It was weird. We got all these in clusters, the 87, 90, then 98, 2000, 2003, and then suddenly 2016. But I guess that's a randomizer for you. This show took place November 19th, 2000, the Ice Palace in Tampa, Florida. This is kind of a weird show, right? It's kind of, I feel like you're kind of reaching the end of a peak here, where, the WWF made some very strange booking decisions around this time that I think really started to hurt them. Obviously, they recover and have a great WrestleMania 17, but then they kind of go right back in the doldrums again, and then really the fucking invasion that goes horribly is like the real end of the era, I guess. But you can start to see some signs here on this show where, like, it seemed like some guys are running in place, and there's some very bizarre decisions based around Rikishi being the guy to run over Austin, which we'll get into here because we got a lot. That's the match we got here, which was The Rock defeating Rikishi in 13 minutes exactly. That's the match we got. Looking over the card, I don't know if there's anything I would have rather gotten. I mean, this card is really not very good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe Kane and Jericho would have been interesting to watch. I don't know. I mean, certainly not upset we didn't get that Austin Triple H match that goes 35 minutes and features Austin murdering him with a fucking forklift at the end, and then some Triple H somehow surviving, which never made any sense. And probably the worst match the two of them ever had. So I don't know.
I do remember the ending of the Kurt Angle Undertaker match.
The fake angle.
I don't know if it's a good match in and of itself, but I wouldn't have minded seeing that just to remind myself of that, because I remember watching it at the time and being like, it did completely confuse me. I was like, how's this worked out? And then obviously it turns out that it was his brother, of course. And so that was quite cool. And maybe seeing the sort of like Benoit, Malenko, Guerrero, and Saturn together, perhaps in the early Survivor Series match might have been all right. But again, nothing match really in some ways.
Eric Angle was like, I remember I used to play Extreme Warfare Deluxe as a kid, and he was always in these fucking mods because of this one appearance, which I thought was funny. But Kurt Angle's brother Eric. But yeah, so the match we got here, Rock and Rikishi, a lot of backstory here. So Rikishi was revealed as the man who ran over Stone Cold at Survivor Series 99. Now, that made no fucking sense. And that was one of these decisions where it's like, okay, a good booking run for the WWF was coming to an end here. Rikishi had barely been on TV by Survivor Series 99 in his new Rikishi Fatu gimmick. He had only appeared on Jacked, from the old Jacked and Metal, the syndicated shows that nobody watched, and one appearance on Sunday Night Heat before Survivor Series. But he claimed he, quote, did it for The Rock. Now that turned out to be yet another swerve. Russo, of course, gone by this point, but I guess the memory of Russo here. Instead, he was paid off by the guy everyone figured did it in the first place, Triple H. As part of this, though, before he was revealed as being paid off by Triple H, so The Rock was defending the WWF title against Kurt Angle at No Mercy, and Rikishi accidentally on purpose cost Rock that match. He accidentally hit him with a couple moves, and then Angle won the title. Now, that I always found to be a really weird part of the story, because Rikishi was working for Triple H the whole time. Why did he help Kurt Angle? Because that was a guy who Hunter had been feuding with for months over his wife at that point, and he was not in on this conspiracy. why did he help Kurt Angle win the title from The Rock? Now, sure, Triple H hates The Rock, but he hated Kurt more at the time, if anything. It was just a very, very bizarre part of the story where I'm like, why would Kurt Angle do that? I mean, why would Rikishi do that? Why would Rikishi Hunter want Angle to win the belt from The Rock? It's very weird. They never really explained that at all. But he did cost The Rock the title and give him another reason to be mad at him. So here we are. Now, Rikishi's heel turn, just one of the most confounding parts of this era. I mean, you'd have this guy who's this pretty fun mid-card babyface, right? Even upper mid-card. I mean, he was IC champion. He did like, I remember he had a big feud in the summer of 2000 with Val Venus, where they had a famous cage match where, with the big elbow drop from Rikishi off the cage, where everybody's like, what the fuck? But the heel turn was just so weird. You have this gimmick where you have a fun-loving, giant Samoan guy in a thong, which does not sound like a gimmick that should be successful, but it's weirdly successful. The fans love him. And you take him and just make him a generic bad man. I mean, they never explained why he did any of this. He just suddenly had a theme song talking about what a bad man he was. I mean, it's literally his theme song. Bad man. Ha ha. Like, that's the theme. It was like one of the worst one of the stupidest theme songs I think I've ever heard. But they never explained why he did any of this. They never explained why he was suddenly a bad guy. Which I guess they don't for lots of heel turns, but it just never. It's like, how did this like fun-loving guy who likes to rub his ass in people's faces turn out to be this like, fucking murderer for hire who ran? I mean, he ran the man over with a car. He was trying to kill him.
They had to do something more, didn't they? At the end of the day, they had to be very, very clear about like, this is the reason why he did what he did. I was kind of wondering, like, because I feel a bit like when I talked about the natural disasters earlier, like, to me, Rikishi could be a good heel because, generally, your big monster of the month type guy who could bully people. And
I will say he worked well in ring as a heel here. I thought.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what was his upper limit almost? Like, the storyline's so bad that obviously it kind of kneecapped him completely. And I in my head, I only ever remember The Rock's promo where it's like, I did it for The Rock, I did it for the blah, 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 blah. And like, basically mocks him for what he said. And that's all I ever think about. But in my head, I'm like, he had a run of about maybe 4 or 5 months. It wasn't a long run as a heel. He turned again fairly quickly and then got injured, if I remember rightly. I was sort of like having a bit of a look. So I really don't remember him as a heel. But he could have been a good heel. But it was just so badly done.
It's just like, and he's at this point, he's just a big heel fat guy in a thong still. Doesn't work as well. It doesn't work at all, no matter how many times the theme song tells us he's a bad man. And just very bizarre. So, and to our point, I guess, he gets no reaction coming out. I mean, think about this. He has been put over as a guy who almost murdered the top babyface in the company and then tried to set up the other top babyface of the company for that murder or attempted murder. And the crowd reacts to him with complete silence.
Yeah, they went all out to try and make him work as well. Like, if you look at, he worked with, he fought Austin the last pay-per-view before this one. So therefore you got Austin, obviously you got Rock, he's partnered with Triple H. So you think, he's with all the people that you need to do to get reactions. And I put little to no reaction. I think little was charitable.
Yeah, exactly. So Rock runs right out to start and beats up Rikishi. He gets a chair, tries to use it on, but the ref pulls it out of his hands, which lets Rikishi super kick him in the face to cut him off. Now, what really helps this match a lot, I thought Rikishi was good in his role, but Rock's over-the-top selling. Now, Rock could sell too much for some guys, right? There were times where his over-the-top selling would come off like hokey or like a detriment. When he's in there with like this big dude Rikishi, the over-the-top selling really works. I mean, it looks like at one point he takes a simple sidewalk slam, like he just got blasted in the chest with a shotgun or something, and like he's convulsing on every little kick and stomp from Rikishi, and it really works to make Rikishi look like this big monster. So, Rock was doing
You can imagine that he was going, like, I've said that as well, he's a good seller of impact moves anyway, and obviously he can overdo it, like you said, but you can imagine he was probably going above and beyond for Rikishi, because, like, the links there, of course, and like he wants this to work, but selling moves and making him look like a badass is only going to do so much considering how bad the rest of it is.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I definitely have that note too, because they're Samoan cousins or whatever. Like Rock is clearly trying very hard here to get Rikishi over, and it makes the match, I think, a pretty great match. They fight. Rock fights back. They go brawl to the outside. The ref gets bumped during this. Rikishi gets the sledgehammer back on the ring. Rock counters with a punch to the face and then hits the rock bottom on him. But he's still selling that Rikishi has beaten him up so badly that he can't cover. So he crawls over and goes to cover him as the ref rolls back in the ring as well. But it all takes so long that Rikishi kicks out. And then Rikishi puts Rock right back down with a big headbutt. Then he gives him another falling headbutt while Rock is laying on the ground. He eventually hits the big butt drop, but Rock kicks out at 2. Rikishi then gives Rock the sting face. Very weird as a heel spot. And the crowd, in fact, still kind of pops for it, even though it's The Rock taking it. But they've been so trained to pop for this as a spot. I feel like later on he will stop doing this as a heel spot. I think he might actually no longer do it later in the.
You really need to, don't you? You need to just cut any poppable move out of your arsenal, don't you? At the end of the day, because it's the only really. I mean, there's no reaction at the start, and there's a bit more reaction to him as he goes on, but it's by far the thing that people pop for the most.
Yeah,
and it's a pop that's a positive thing as well, and it's not what you want from your heel at the end of the day.
Rock suddenly explodes out of the corner with this awesome running clothesline. Rikishi. Think of how big Rikishi is. He somehow takes a fucking flip bump for this clothesline. That got me out of my chair. I'm like, how the hell did this 400-pound man or whatever it is just take a flip bump off a clothesline? That was really impressive. So really, really, really cool spot there. Rock then comes back with this huge spine buster on Rikishi, hits the people's elbow. He's still selling so much he can't cover. He finally does crawl over and cover, and to my surprise, that's the pin. They did treat the people's elbow as a second finisher around this time, but it still kind of was okay, really pinned him with the elbow after it just kind of felt counterintuitive for the or counterproductive for the getting Rikishi over as a monster thing. But Rikishi does get back up and super kick Rock after the match. Then he gives him 3 straight bonsai drops in the corner to leave him laying, and then walks back over. It looks like he's going to leave and gives him a 4th. I thought was kind of a great touch. But yeah, this match, the big surprise for me in the episode. I really liked it.
I mean, it's very, very. I mean, it's good for what it is. I mean, it's 13 minutes. It's packed with action. There's a lot going on. Yeah, I felt the ending was, again, I'm a bit like you. I know the people's elbow was protected a bit more, but he didn't hit the rock bottom at that point. I know he hit it a bit earlier, but then also he took a million years to get over to make the count. And obviously he's selling the ribs, but unfortunately for me, I was just a little bit it made things look worse. It made it look softer almost. He's hitting with just the elbow, and then he's crawled over to him, and Rikishi still doesn't kick out. And admittedly, they made up a bit of it with the bonsai drops at the end, and obviously he kind of walks out, and the Rock is suffering in the ring. But
I think Rock taped his ribs up for that too, which was good.
Yeah, if you're trying to sell some this big nasty heel, having him get beaten in that way, it was just a bit. They protected him against Austin in the pay-per-view before. I think we went to a no contest. I'm not saying you need to go to no contest all the time, but I feel like a clean loss doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I would have liked him to schoolboy him or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, even beyond the finish, though, I thought Rock's over-the-top selling really worked well here to make Rikishi look like a big monster. It probably is the best Rikishi looked in this entire period. And, Rock really tried his best here. And I thought, I went 3 3/4, maybe overrating a little bit because I sat through some really boring crap before this. But I thought it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed this one. So.
Yeah, again, I said I'm not a big sort of star rating person, but yeah, I was thinking you think it was definitely above average, sort of 3.5, if that's what you're kind of going for. It did the job and it entertained. It could have been booked better in places, but it was fun bell to bell.
So we move forward now to our second to last one here, Survivor Series 2003, November 16th, the American Airlines Arena in Dallas, Texas. Oh boy, this card sucks. I will say that first of all. I mean, the match we got was pretty bad, but there really isn't much else in the show I'd rather talk about. I mean, so the match we got was the Basham Brothers with Shaniqua. Oh boy, I can't wait to talk about that in a second. Defeating Los Guerreros, Chavo and Eddie in exactly 9 minutes to retain the WWE Tag Team titles. There really isn't anything on this show, though. I don't think people remember how dire of a year 2003 was for WWE. They kind of made a little bit of a comeback in 2004, but 2003 was a low-key, awful year for this company. I mean, there were a lot of really bad shows, really bad angles. This was the Vince and Stephanie creepy feud had just happened. The semi-main event here is Vince and The Undertaker in a fucking Buried Alive match. The Goldberg world title run did not work at all, really, and this was like Triple H's worst work probably of his entire career, where like his, one of his fucking knees is constantly injured or something like that, and he was even worse than usual and just gutting himself through these matches for no real reason. So the main event was Goldberg and Hunter, which was not very good either, and I don't regret not getting that. The only thing on this show that would have been fun to get, because I remember this being really good, was the Bischoff versus Team Austin Survivor Series elimination match, where Shawn Michaels, who frequently would be like the only highlight of these early 2000s shows after he came back. I remember he like bled buckets and like was the last guy in this match and for the Austin team, and really I remember got down to like 3-on-1 and was doing his really good selling and stuff like that. So it would have been cool to see if that held up, to get that, because I remember liking that quite a lot, as a teenager.
Yeah, this coincides with my time at university, so I don't think I've ever watched any of this really.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have picked the Bashams out of a lineup. Genuinely, I guessed vaguely that they were big and bald, but most wrestlers are. So
yeah, but yeah, I mean this so that was the only thing on this show that I would have liked to get and like to have gotten. I don't know if there's anything that stood out to you, but.
No, it doesn't look great. I'll be honest with you. Like having had a bit of a look through just now, I'm like, I guess because I don't think I've ever seen it. The man Undertaker Buried Alive sounds kind of weirdly interesting, but yeah,
it's not.
I was checked out.
It's really horrible.
Oh, I can only imagine. But I was checked out at this point. I was off at university. I was going out on nights out, meeting people, drinking beer. I wasn't really wrestling was a footnote on my time at that point. So yeah, not for me.
So the finish of Undertaker and Vince Buried Alive is so there's a backhoe or whatever, right, to dump the dirt in the grave. Vince is in the grave. Undertaker goes to open the door of the backhoe, and there's a explosion of some kind. Like basically, it's supposed to be Kane's pyro, but like localized to this backhoe door or something. It's like I can't even describe how stupid it is. It's just a flash, and somehow this flash causes Undertaker to like fall off the backhoe, and then he staggers in the grave and falls in it without anybody ever touching him, all from some pyro going off in his general vicinity. And Kane opens the door, laughs evilly, and and Vince climbs in the backhoe and dumps the dirt on Undertaker. So Undertaker is defeated by pyro. That's what happens here. Pyro going off in his general vicinity.
Well, considering it's 12 minutes long, apparently, you've saved me about 10 minutes, so thanks for that. I'll take the ending, it's fine.
It's one of the worst finishes of a major match I could ever remember. Like, Kane doesn't touch him. Like, I watched it again to make sure, because I was like, is the ending as bad as I remember? And I watched just the ending, not the whole match. And I was like, Kane does not touch this man. Some pyro goes off, and Undertaker is like so disabled by it, he like falls in the grave for no reason. It's just so fucking stupid. But yeah, so that's definitely not upset we didn't get that one. So the match we did get here, the Bashams, they became the 8th WWE Tag Team Champions, which are the SmackDown brand belts that were invented in 2002, not the historic belts, which are now called the World Tag Titles on Raw. They beat the Guerreros on the October 21st SmackDown, and this rematch is their first defense. And they're beginning to tease the Chavo Eddie split, which there'll be a spot towards the end of the match, so they'll continue teasing it. That tease went on for months, as it turned out. But yeah, because Chavo finally did turn on his uncle on the January 4th, 2004 episode of SmackDown. But yeah, I mean, more than a month away at this point, and they had started teasing it like in October, if I remember correctly. But that would set up the blow-off match at the Rumble, where Eddie then quickly ascended to the top of the singles ranks. He won the WWE title from Brock Lesnar the following month at No Way Out. The Bashams, meanwhile, would hold the tag titles until the February 3rd, 2004 episode of SmackDown, where they lost to the team of Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty in a 5-minute match.
I had to I wanted to blurt out there February with a big, massive question mark. Like, these were champions until February.
It is very weird. That's so, yes, the Bashams and Equal gimmick always so weird to me. Like, okay, why am I, as a viewer, supposed to care that these two men have a dominatrix and like to be whipped? That's supposed to be heel heat. We're not supposed to like them because they come out with a dominatrix and she whips them once each before the match starts. why do I give a fuck what Doug and Danny Basham like to do in their private sex lives? Like, I never got why that was supposed to be a heel thing. I guess it's because, you're not real men or something. I don't know, but it's one of the more bizarre heel gimmicks to me in history, where it's like, I don't get why I'm supposed to boo this. And the live crowd agrees with me because they make you have never heard an act in WWE history get less reaction than this. I mean, there is not a single person making a single bit of noise when these tag team champions come out for their introduction. I mean, no one in this arena cares even the tiniest bit. It is amazing how little they care. I mean, if you think you've heard a gimmick not be over, trust me, this is like a different definition of not over.
I feel like I gave more of a reaction to what happened than anyone in the building because I wasn't expecting the whipping. So when they got whipped, I was a bit like, "Oh, that was not what I was expecting."
It's so bizarre. But yeah, so I guess it kind of explains why Shaniqua will be gone soon after this. Her last appearance came at No Way Out 2004 in February. She went on to a long career apparently as a women's college basketball referee. So, good for her, I guess.
Yeah, strange as well because she was involved in some of the better parts of this, or at least the parts that people reacted to later on, at least in the match. I'd say. Not saying she had much upside other than that, but like considering the Basham's got no reaction, she at least got something. It would
see Tough Enough. She was the Tough Enough winner, by the way. Tough Enough season 2 winner, Linda Miles. Yeah, her and Jackie Gata, I think, was the other one. But yeah, so that was the year where both the women won, which I guess people didn't realize could even happen. But either way, it was a very, very, very strange gimmick, and it did not work at all, really. The only thing that worked, I guess, is what you were going to say when she would attack the baby faces. That did kind of work, and it was like the giant woman. I mean, giant. I mean, she's like probably 6 feet tall, very tall lady. But so like the tall lady beating up the babyface men. That worked going all the way back to China. So that always kind of did draw some heat. So I guess that's always kind of been a good gimmick. I remember I saw an interview with her because I was researching like where is she now, and she mentioned which is probably the first time anyone has done this much research into Linda Miles / Shaniqua in many years. But when she mentioned that she was supposed to start wrestling men, like she said basically Vince was talking about having her wrestle men, which maybe I guess explains why she was getting so physical with the Guerreros here. But then she said it basically didn't happen, and she left the company and ended up becoming a college basketball ref. So, like I said, I hope she's enjoying her career there. I don't know where I'm going with that. I really struggled to find many notes to take about the actual match. They kind of just go back and forth. I mean, Eddie does eventually do a cool little spot where he has one Basham by his arm, runs up the top rope and does a Rana on the other one. That did look very cool. But he then runs right into a double hot shot from the Bashams. So he gets cut right back off again. He gets slingshot to the outside, barely gets over the top rope. Now, he seemingly has to motion for Shaniqua to charge over and clothesline him, which I guess is not great. Maybe she missed her spot or missed the cue or something. But she does run over and clothesline him, and then she scoop slams him on the outside for good measure. She gets involved later on, distracts the ref so the Bashams can do a switch, then tries to get involved. Chavo clotheslines her, holds her for Eddie to frog splash her, then puts her over his leg so Eddie can spank her. That did not age well at all. I mean, that is like, basically you're talking about two men decide to take a woman who is, living apparently a dominatrix lifestyle, and they're like, we're going to show her, let's smack her ass. I'm like, that's kind of simulated sexual assault. It's really not very good. Not a good spot here. One of these many WWE spots that looks really, really bad in hindsight.
It got the biggest reaction as well. That's the thing. Like I think the frog splash on her got the biggest reaction by far. Which meant the spot's over.
Right.
But still.
Up to the frog splash is fine. I mean, she's fighting Ben and the men
Oh
fight
yeah,
back.
no,
I mean,
of course. I mean,
yeah.
it's funny. Like in 2021 eyes, you sort of look back and go, okay, so the spot where he frog splashes the woman and then bends her over and spanks her is the big spot. Is an odd concept.
Yeah. I mean, the frog splash I thought was fine because she's fighting them and they fight back, but then the fucking spanking was just like, this is really creepy and really like I said, kind of simulated sexual assault. So not good at all. The finish comes right after one of the Basham's schoolboys, Chavo, after he accidentally kicks Eddie when going for a tornado DDT, and which the camera almost completely misses on first time. You see it on the replay. And then he pulls his tights and gets the win. This was pretty fucking bad. Nothing really that fun or interesting here. Basham's one of the most boring teams in WWE history. Shaniqua stuff was fucking creepy at best. And I don't know, went 1 3/4. Just almost all of that for Eddie's double team Rana spot. And they blew the finish. The cameraman blew the finish too on top of that. So yeah, not good.
Yeah, I hate finishes where a move is applied differently to how it would be done normally, just to cause a problem. So the swinging DDT he does, and then somehow kicks his uncle. It was a bit. It looked bad personally, and almost was blown, except from the camera's point of view. Eddie does some good stuff in this. I think he's fired up. Eddie's good, and the Three Amigos is a great spot. And as highlighted on the AEW pay-per-view, which I watched recently, he does it the best of any wrestler I've seen do it. To be fair, so it was good to see that. Of course, 1.5, 1 3/4. I'm sort of with you. Realistically, it wasn't great, and I wasn't inspired to go out and see any more Basham Brothers. If that's the one Basham Brothers match I've seen, I'm happy with that.
They're horrible. I mean, they're really
they were not good. They were not good. To be fair, actually, I'll put it out there. I did put on my notes Chavo Guerrero, the worst best wrestler ever. He's always talked about as someone who's obviously competent as a wrestler, but I could not give a shit about him.
Yeah, he's not Mr. Excitement, that is for sure.
No, he just does nothing for me on any level.
So we jump all the way forward here from 2003 to 2016 for our last show here. This is Survivor Series 2016 from November 20th, the Air Canada Center in Toronto. All right, folks, we got cut off again, so another awkward transition. But I just introduced Survivor Series 2016. I was about to say, I don't want to say it's an interesting show because it's not really, but it's sort of like the start of the current era of Survivor Series because they had just reinstated the brand split, after they never officially ended it after it started in 2002, but just kind of drifted into not being a thing anymore. And then they restarted it in 2016. That was the second brand split. And, this is the first. So this is it was July 2016. And this is the first Survivor Series, that's again Raw versus SmackDown. They hadn't yet come up with the idea of doing these champion versus champion matches, but you again had 3 different Raw versus SmackDown elimination matches, which I feel like would have been kind of interesting to get just to see the first ones, I guess, of this era. I don't know how much you were watching in 2016, but it is always fun to me when we do these WWE ones and I get recent stuff, and it reminds me just how sporadically I've been watching for the past 13 years, where I can remember almost everything from WWE all the way through from 94 through 2008. I can remember that stuff all really, really well. And then other than that, I came back for Punk's Pipe Bomb promo in 2011 and Brian's Big Win in 2014, but I was not a big fan of them at all from for the entire decade plus, the last 13 years or so. So there's so much stuff where I never saw it at all, or I did kind of see it, but only was half paying attention. And I just don't remember, the entire last 13 years of WWE at all.
Yeah, so I just watched passively, I think. So I'm looking at the card here and I'm sure I watched this, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about it.
I don't remember it at all, so I don't think I watched it, but I could have watched it and just not paid attention. But yeah, so basically until we got to the hype video, until I started looking into it, I had no memory this was Goldberg's first match back in 12 years, like his actual return. It does make sense, though, because Goldberg beat Brock back at WrestleMania 20 in 2004. A match I was at Madison Square Garden, a true disaster to the point where they had to censor the crowd on the DVD just to make it watchable because the crowd hated. People don't remember that story. Brock was leaving to do his NFL tryout, and Goldberg was leaving just because he hated the promotion and wanted nothing to do with them by that point after how shitty his run had been. And the crowd just booed the shit out of both guys and totally turned on the match. It was fun to be there for that, honestly, to boo the crap out of both of them. But like, yeah, just completely, they had to like censor the crowd basically to make it watchable on DVD. But the return match here is another match with Goldberg and Brock, so it makes sense. And Goldberg had won that match of 2004, so this is like Brock going for his revenge. And this all came about when Goldberg was included in the 2K video game that year, apparently, which actually was the catalyst for a lot of returns of this era, I should say. And then they hyped it up with Goldberg challenging Brock on SportsCenter. 5 years later, after what everybody I think assumed would be like a little one-off here, Goldberg is still making sporadic appearances in WWE after missing all that time. So kind of amazing when you think about it. Here's the whole match, everybody. Bell rings. Brock double legs him, backs him in the corner. Goldberg pushes him right down his ass. Brock stares up at him in shock for a bit, which I thought was kind of corny, but then he smirks at him. But he makes his mistake, like getting back up and turning his back on Goldberg. That lets Goldberg spear Brock. Goldberg hits a second spear. He waits around for Brock to get back up, and then he gives him the jackhammer and pins him. That's the whole match. Now, as a moment, and we all know WWE creates moments, as a moment, this works. The crowd clearly loves it. As a match, it's really nothing. It's pretty bad when you have a minute and a half of runtime, and there's still a lot of the two of them like staring at each other, and like one waiting for them to get back up. Like they do have a really cool match together, but it's the 4 minute and 45 second rematch at WrestleMania 33 the following April. That match is awesome. This match is just kind of nothing. I don't really
as a man who hasn't got a lot of time to like watch wrestling matches, when on the same card there's a 52-minute match, I was quite happy to get the 26-second match, to be honest with you. I'm glad you mentioned it, though, because I do feel like they did build quite well, considering like what this match is, they did build quite well on it in the rematches, because, Brock's kind of like arrogance kind of cost him in this match, and he just thought he'd beat Goldberg, he'd be fine, and Goldberg obviously beats him very quickly. And then there's a few bits in the next couple of matches they have where he's kind of learning that actually Goldberg is a bit more of a threat. You take what you can get in some ways, and Lesnar to me is still someone who, for the most part, is an engaging watch, if not always producing the best matches. Like he's someone you want to watch, and you kind of do. I will tune into his matches in a way I won't for many other people. I'm more surprised that it was about promotion for the new game as much as anything else. It seemed like I thought it was would be a bit more of an epic kind of like reason for them fighting, but they basically were arguing over the video game, and then they have a 26-second fight, and it's a bit it should have felt bigger than it was, and it really just didn't.
So I went 2 1/4. I don't know, certainly not even an average match, but whatever. It's a minute and a half long. Who really cares?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to like rate, because you just as a moment, like it is pretty cool. And I liked you talking about the idea of like when Lesnar was looking up at him, like being a bit corny. I quite like that. I like the fact that he seemed shocked by the fact that actually what Goldberg could do something to him. But 2 stars realistically, like, and that's purely for the moment, not for the match. But as I said, the thing with Brock Lesnar that I always think as well is that if you go back to what he was like when he first debuted, he was just a freak of like athleticism, and like if you go back and watch some of his earlier stuff in his first year, like he's so impressive. And admittedly, he still maintained that aura, but like he just doesn't have the same capacity to wrestle much outside of what he knows what he can do, and he knows what like works, and that's kind of what he does. And it's a bit of a shame in some ways, but he's had health issues. He's had he's old now, older now, isn't he? So therefore, he's not going to be the same wrestler. So. Yeah, it's a shame, but it's an interesting moment. It's worth watching. It's 26 seconds. Why not?
The other big critique at the time was that WWE basically spent years telling you that part-timer Brock was on a completely different level than all the regular roster members, and the guy they have squash him clean in a minute is another even older part-timer in Goldberg. Now, I remember a lot of people at the time being like, what if they had Braun Strowman do that to Brock instead? And at the time, again, 5 years ago, that did feel like a point of critique. 5 years later, Braun's not even in the company anymore. And the wrestlers in this company have become so completely interchangeable and quite literally discardable that I'm not sure it even would have mattered if Braun had been the one to squash Brock in this big win in a minute, at the time. I don't know if the arc of WWE history really fucking changes if Braun gets that win instead of Goldberg.
No, it's interesting, isn't it, as well? Because like the way they treated some of the other people coming in. So if you look at like Sting's matches in WWE, like to put someone who even more so in some ways wasn't their own property. Like Goldberg was a huge, Attitude Era WCW guy. So to put him over so strongly, even though I know he'd been there before, but like it was strange. Like I say strange, but like it just of all the people to put over him so strongly. But as you said, like it does end up in a good match eventually, and maybe this is like the starting point that builds towards that, and you accept it and move from there, really.
Yeah, I don't know. Like at the time, it felt like a very pointed critique, but like again, the arc of WWE history, I don't think changes much. I mean, it'd still be a horrible company making horrible television, getting paid shitloads of money by other companies. They just kind of are what they are, and booking for them just does not matter at all, which is one of the reasons why they're just so uninteresting to cover or talk about in this era. So, it kind of is what it is. The fact that people got very pissed when Goldberg beat Bray for the I think the Universal title, of last year in 2020, and now Bray's fired. I mean, just there's no nothing matters if they're just going to keep releasing guys with such speed. I mean, you can never know who's going to be on TV getting a push and who's going to be gone the next minute. Like
when Goldberg's your last man standing on that, it's a bit of a in 2016, if you go, you got Bray, you got Braun Strowman, you got Bray, what would be Bray Wyatt effectively, and you're like, actually Goldberg would still be around, and those guys.
Goldberg and Brock.
I'm not saying they were great by any means, but just
Goldberg and Brock are still there. Goldberg and Brock are both still there. Bray and Braun are both gone. It's very bizarre, but yeah, just I don't know, just kind of a down note to end the show on, but that just definitely something.
It shines a light on what WWE has become in some ways. So.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Liam, anything you want to plug before you get out of here?
So I obviously contribute to Voices of Wrestling, so I do the Wrestling Classic, where I'm looking at the top 100 80s matches as decided. I think it was posted by Jeff Baldwin in a Wrestling Observer at the end of the 80s. So I'm kind of going through those and looking at the ones that have video footage and sort of doing a bit of a deep dive on those. I've written some books for Kindle, so therefore if you go and have a look for I've got the Road to WrestleMania 3, which is my most recent one, which covers the year from WrestleMania 2 to WrestleMania 3 and kind of covers what happened there to go from a pretty bad pay-per-view to one of their best pay-per-views in terms of, scope and, in terms of actually, realising what they wanted from WrestleMania. But I also did Tracking the Territories as well, which is a set of 4 books, which looked at 1984, mainly TV reviews, just looking at sort of various shows and kind of reviewing them as I went along. But if you were looking for, some coverage of the time period of Hogan comes in to WWF at the start of that year, wins the belt, and kind of that first year, looking at what WWF are doing, looking at what Mid-South are doing, looking at Memphis, Crockett, a bit of everyone really, to be fair. So, check those out. Follow me at Twitter. TV Time Limit is my handle. Don't post loads, but obviously I do try to share my own work. So by all means, check it out. And that's about it, really.
Wow, I usually say anything to plug, and the guest is like has nothing, but you had like 5 things. So there you go. You're making the most of that plug time. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Wrestling Omakase, Wrestling Wouldn't Fit. We'll be back in 2 weeks for another Retro Roulette episode. This time talking the WCW Starrcade, only the WCW years, because I do not really know anything about pre-WCW NWA. So figured it'd be good to just use the WCW years as a starting point. So. But yes, we'll be back in 2 weeks with that. In the meantime, I want to thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next time.
Welcome to Parent Teacher Night. Oh, yes, Miss Garner.
If you have one of those airline credit cards, you're probably not earning double miles on every purchase.
You're right. My card only gets extra miles on some types of purchases.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles everywhere.
Wait, but where can we use them?
You can use Capital One Venture Miles on any travel purchase.
Venture gets an A+.
Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.